Alright, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we shall see how good this will work. Facebook seems to have changed some of their live video interface here, and I seem to be lagging really badly, at least on my own display. So who knows how this will work. Hopefully it'll work just as well as Chelsea did today, and not as badly as West Brom. Somebody was first, so that's a plus, right? Yeah, just put a comment there if something is if you can't hear me, or if it's lagging, or if there's any other technical difficulties. Because all I see on my own screen is me, like, still pictures of myself, which is always weird. It's supposed to be live. Is Conte really leaving? I don't think Conte is going anywhere. But he is hiding behind his glorious beard. It's a new Conte, but fortunately it's the same old Chelsea. Winning 4-0 today. Is that all? 4-0. Returning to the site of last year's glorious title-clinching victory. That was only a 1-0. That was more of the West Brom that we know, or that we would expect from Tony Pulis. Today was not quite the Tony Pulis, other than West Brom trying to kick everybody into little pieces. Hazard got a nice little two-footed tackle from Gareth Barry. Morata got a couple kicks from Jakob, etc., etc. But fortunately, I think it looks like everybody survived in one piece. And at the same time, we're able to put in a really nice performance. 2 goals from Hazard, a goal from Morata, and a goal from Marcus Alonso. It's not a bad day, not a bad day at all. The game was basically over inside of the first quarter of, if you break the game into 4 quarters instead of 2 halves. It was basically over in the first quarter. Hazard scoring in the 23rd minute was basically it for West Brom. West Brom did start okay. They put on a lot of pressure. They even had the ball in the back of the net, but Rondon was offside, so that didn't count. They try to cross a lot in the first 10 or so minutes, and we seem to have a bit of a problem with all that, but eventually sorted it all out. Morata got a tap in from Hazard's shot for the first goal. Then Morata set up the second goal for Hazard. Why don't I show us a live game sometime? I think that would be against the rules of the Premier League being very careful about their own intellectual property and all that. Yeah, there's I can show you pictures because I have rights through the blog, through pictures, but obviously not for live video. That'd be pretty cool, but alas, that's not something that's really feasible. Anyway, so 3-5-2, Chelsea sticking with the same exact lineup as against Manchester United before the international break, with Courtois in goal, Cahill, Christensen, and Azpilicueta across the back three. Dare I say this is now our first choice back three. Kind of sucks for Rudiger and David Luiz, but little to find at fault with those three today. Christensen looking very composed under pressure or outside of pressure, with the ball or without the ball. Got beaten on a couple headers that I possibly would expect David Luiz to win, but otherwise, very, very much a composed, solid performance from 21-year-old Andreas Christensen, who seems to be first choice at the moment. Azpilicueta was probably the best defender overall, showing none of the poor play that seemed to creep into his game last month and before, when he was being switched around in different positions, playing right wing back, right back, etc., etc. So he's consistency in selection is helping that out. So it's good to see Azpilicueta back to his best. And yeah, I'd expect Cahill, Christensen, Azpilicueta to continue. Probably we'll see it next weekend against Liverpool, and I'd assume we'd rotate a little bit for Qarabag on Wednesday. Wingbacks of Alonso and Zappacosta, not much choice there since Alonso doesn't have a backup and Moses is still injured. He is getting close. Victor Moses, who was over the weekend named, or actually yesterday, named Nigerian Player of the Year by the Nigerian Sports Awards. And he's, of course, nominated for African Player of the Year by both the BBC and the African Federation. So, good. Moses getting his rewards for a good season, but he is still a little bit injured, so he was not even on the bench as he tries to come back from his hamstring injury. And then midfield 3, which really works really well in the 3-5-2 these days, with Conte and Fabregas, the deeper of the two, and Bakayoko in the more of a shuttling role, popping up as your forward, as your third forward, and then dropping back into midfield out of possession. Fabregas playing deeper was a really nice move today since West Brom failed to really put any pressure on him. And when Fabregas has time and space, there are few better with the ball in all of football, and he certainly made good use of all his space, picking out whoever he wanted at will. There was a game before the international break when his passing seemed to be completely off. I think it was a Roma game, but everybody was off in that game. So it's much like others like Azpilicueta. Fabregas being at his best is always a good sign for Chelsea in terms of goal scoring. So, and with Conte next to him, we can afford the luxury and give him lots of minutes. Moses will be back next week, hopefully. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's been a time frame put on his return, but he is back in training, basically light training at least. So yeah, he's getting close. Of course, Conte likes to play it slow with a lot of with players coming back from injury. So maybe one of these midweek games will get Moses out there playing. We're starting a streak of like 17 games in 45 days or something like that. So there's a game every 3 or 4 days. So we certainly can use Moses and others back as soon as possible because there's going to be a lot of minutes to go around. And then so the rest of the lineup today was the front two of Morata and Hazard, and that combination is working as well as it ever has. Certainly today, combined for the first two goals, and then Alonso got the third goal from the Fabregas free kick. And Hazard put the finishing touches on in the second half with a fourth goal. That was from another Fabregas assist, so very nice day. Nice to see Morata getting on the score sheet. Wasn't with his head, so, it still counts with his putting away a rebound, following up the shot as all good forwards should. Morata had a second chance, a pretty good chance to add a second in the second half, but was not meant to be. The game wasn't televised in the U.S. as Fernando. Yeah, this was one of those was one of the games that was not picked for television in the U.S. or the U.K. for that matter. Of course, it was at 3 p.m., so none of those games are ever televised in the U.K. But it's very rare to not see a game on television in the U.S. And it was on NBC's news service this year, NBC Gold or whatever they want to call it, which is pretty dumb and nobody likes it because they're basically making you pay twice for the same content that you had for the last few seasons, included within the usual subscription to your cable service. So I think the general verdict on NBC Gold is please do away with it, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And NBC Gold is probably here to stay, so we might as well learn to love it, I guess. Fortunately, Chelsea, will only be on there like 3 or 4 times a year. We've already been there twice, so that's maybe one more time I have to deal with this nonsense. But yeah, not sure what they were thinking of, but they're trying to make as much money off it as possible. That's what everybody's doing, right? Hazard and Morata equals goals. Certainly today is the name of the game. I think what was it? I'd give the assist on the Morata goal to Hazard just because, he took the shot and forced the goalkeeper into the save for the rebound. I think officially it doesn't really count as an assist, but it is what it is. Your channel is fine, but we need live video. Well, I think you're just gonna have to look around on the glorious internets and find yourself the live video of the match. Certainly, you should watch at least the highlights because there's some really nice interplay from Chelsea today. It wasn't like we only had 11 shots total and scored 4 goals off of it, so that's not too bad, to say the least. As return, 7 on target. So that's certainly a better ratio, 7 out of 11, than we're normally capable of producing. So clinical finishing from Chelsea today. Not that West Brom really put up too much resistance after the first couple goals. Yeah, so I'd say Hazard for the first assist, then Fabregas picking up 2 assists on the second Hazard goal and the Alonso goal. And Hazard also started the move for the first Hazard goal, which in between the Fabregas pass and the goal, there was a really nice flick from Morata. So it certainly those 3 have stepped up today to show us how it's done. Which was good because last time we came out of an international break, we went to Crystal Palace and proceeded to put in probably the worst performance of the season in losing 2-1 then. Fortunately, and when this game started, first 10 minutes or so, West Brom certainly looked lively and ready to try to cause some problems. And for a moment there, we had little flashbacks to that Palace game and say, here we go again, another limp performance out of an international break from Chelsea. But fortunately, after about the first 10 minutes, that nonsense stopped, and the real Chelsea showed up and started playing. And and that was that. What do I think of Conte's beard? Well, so far it's pretty fantastic. We're unbeaten. 4 goals for beard. That's a pretty good return. He says his wife is making him grow it, which is an interesting, I guess, thing to know. I don't know. Whatever works for him. Maybe it's a November thing. Maybe it's a playoff beard. He's gonna keep growing it. He's gonna keep growing it until we keep winning, which is fine. Because we're gonna go on like a 17-game winning streak, and he's gonna end up with a beard that's like this big, and it's gonna be glorious and amazing. So, big fan of the Conte beard. As long as we keep winning, he can grow whatever he wants. Crisis? What crisis? If this is a crisis, then long may it remain. This is probably the best crisis ever. Nah, the crisis is basically just that one game against Roma, which was, in fairness, pretty bad, at least on the score sheet. So we have a chance to make that right on Wednesday when we go to Qarabag, which is in Azerbaijan. Conte needed the Italy elimination to wake him. It's much more organized and motivated side. I mean, I think we looked all right before the international break too. We looked fine against Manchester United, and we looked okay against Bournemouth. It was just that Roma game that just looked absolutely terrible. And it's not really helping things that Manchester City are basically running away with the league. They won again today, 2 or 3. You kind of lose count. They did lose John Stones to what looked like a pretty serious injury, so maybe that'll affect them in the longer run. But right now they're basically irresistible, and it puts any other team's slightly poor performance into a much worse light, I guess. I mean, Chelsea have 25 points right now from 12 games, which is not terrible. Last season we had 25 points from 11 games. So, I mean, okay, so we're 3 points behind last year's pace, but we're 9 points behind in the title race. So there you go. It's City making everybody look very, very bad because they are basically unbeatable at this point. But it's a long season, and everybody keeps saying that. Of course, Victor Moses said that. Antonio Conte said that. So, we're 12 games into a 38-game season, so we're not even at the third mark. Why can I say this? At the 1/3 mark of the season. I mean, we kind of are, but basically, 30% of the season done. Still a long way to go, but it's hard to see Manchester City drop too many points. So it is what it is. The best, only thing we can do is keep winning, keep gaining those points. Right now we're in third because Spurs lost to Arsenal, and if you watch that game, Spurs look terrible, which is surprising because they're supposed to be the best team in England, right? That's what everybody kept saying. Best team in England last 2 years. Spurs look terrible today. It's losing to Arsenal like that. That's should be unconscionable. So we're back in the third. Could be second if Manchester United failed to beat Newcastle today, which I think the game is kicking off right now. I don't really see that happening because Newcastle are not very good, and United have a lot of their players back. I think Pogba's starting for them, and who else was back? Ibrahimovic, I think, is back. So they're getting healthy. So it's probably going to be a win. Yeah, Pogba starting and Ibrahimovic on the bench. So yeah, Mourinho can finally stop whining about injuries, which of course he never does. He never talks about injuries, but let's talk about injuries. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that as we go. Although we might not be here for too much longer. What's happening to Sideshow Bob? Everybody wants to know what's happening to Sideshow Bob. Well, I mean, the good thing is David Luiz was back on the bench, so his quote-unquote banishment is over. His banishment basically lasted like 2 days in training, and then following that up with the game against Manchester United. Whatever actually happened between David Luiz and Conte, I don't think we'll find out until possibly end of the season, or until one of them is sold or gets fired. That's kind of how these things go. There's certainly plenty of parallels between the David Luiz situation and the Costa situation last year. That all started with with Costa getting randomly dropped for a game. That was in January, I think. Or even before then, there was some public little conflict between the two of them. I think it was like Costa wanted to get substituted, then he wasn't substituted, and then Conte told him to stay on, then he talked back, etc., etc. So kind of similar genesis to the whole thing publicly that we've seen. Whether that really has anything to do with it, who knows? Last year we maintained that the Costa Conte thing was nothing, and they talked it out. And then later we found out that Costa was basically told in January that he's no longer needed. And that was spun as sort of a offer from China, and he wants to go to China thing. But that really never was the case because Costa said he never wanted to go to China. The only other team he would ever consider was Atletico, as sure enough he eventually ended up going there. So there's definitely, we might play it off right now. Conte keeps saying it's dropping David Luiz was a purely technical decision. But that certainly doesn't really make that much sense. Certainly against Manchester United when he wasn't even on the bench, that makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, Ethan Ampadu certainly is a a good prospect for the future, but putting him on the bench instead of David Luiz as a tactical decision, I'm not really buying that, and not really seeing what we would gain in terms of tactics. But it makes a good, it kind of diffuses the situation in terms of media and public pressure or public attention. And Conte's not one to air dirty laundry, certainly in the middle of the season. So that probably won't happen. But also, I would not be surprised if at the end of the season it's David Luiz who gets the thanks for the season nose and is on his way. But that's assuming Conte lasts beyond this season, which, it's Chelsea and it's Conte who has only 2 years on his contract. So everything is flexible and very fluid. And one day maybe we'll find out exactly what happened between Conte and David Luiz. For right now, we seem to be in a situation or in a place where David Luiz is second choice to Christensen. I think whoever started today was going to be, as good of an indicator as any as to who's Conte's most trusted defensive trio. And as we were saying earlier, Cahill, Christensen, and Azpilicueta looks like our first choice back three. David Luiz is on the bench, and I would expect him to rotate in for the Qarabag game alongside, Rudiger and whoever else comes in for the second choice lineup here. But yeah, we can look at it two ways, really. You can play up the sensational angle and say Conte dropped David Luiz and there's palpable discord and blazing rows and all this, and David Luiz is super angry and disappointed and he wants to go to Manchester United or whoever. Or we could concentrate on the fact that Christensen, who is 21 years old and has been out on loan for 2 years and thus basically written off many times as in having no future at Chelsea, because when do loan players ever come back to actually play big parts? When do Chelsea ever play a 21-year-old in a key role? And suddenly here is Christensen, who certainly appears to be our first choice center back of the back three. And as the question goes, can Christensen truly be the heir to John Terry? Right now, at this very moment, he certainly looks like he could be the next, or really the first academy product, if we want to. We can count Christensen as an academy product since he had been here since he was 16 and played several years in the youth teams. As the first one since John Terry to actually make it into the Chelsea first team. And that's something we've been talking about for at least 10 years, as somebody actually needs to make this leap, needs to reward or show as an actual product for Chelsea's investment in the youth scheme, in building the academy, in buying all these players, in growing the local talent. Christensen obviously is not from London. He's from somewhere in Denmark, but he joined when he was 16 years old and won the Youth Cup and stuff like that. So perhaps the first of many. It's what we've been waiting for all this time. We've been waiting for some coach to actually trust the young talent that we have at the team. And here's Conte, who's, after all his talk about trusting players and playing players who deserve to play, is apparently playing Christensen over David Luiz because Christensen deserves to play and he's trusted and he's really good. And there you go. It's we can look at that angle and actually be happy that one of our young players is getting minutes that he deserves. That it's coming at the expense of David Luiz, who was built up as one of the best defenders in the world by Conte himself, not just last year, but earlier this season, is perhaps a bit strange and perhaps speaks to there being some personal conflict between coach and player. which isn't all that hard to see either, because I mean it's Conte and he's a passionate dude, and he's David Luiz, who's has a reputation for not taking everything so seriously all the time, and I could certainly see that those two personalities clashing. David Luiz is kind of similar to Costa in many aspects of his personality, and if it's not full commitment, Conte can. You can get into Conte's doghouse, is what I'm trying to say, and that's where David Luiz appears to be, at least a little bit. But it's, again, much like the title race, it's a long season, and Conte and Costa made it work, certainly last season, even though there was quite, as it turned out later, quite clear disagreements between the two of them, and we still rode that relationship and Costa's goals to the title. So we can. It's not like David Luiz is not going to play the rest of the season, I'd assume, unless he's sold in in January. Enraged Hazard is a beast. Yeah, Hazard certainly got a little upset when he got trod on with both feet by Gareth Barry, and he didn't even get a free kick out of it, and drew the ire of the few fans who actually cared in the stands. That was like the one time the home crowd actually came alive, is when Hazard had the temerity to ask the referee as to why he didn't get a free kick after Gareth Barry stood on both of his feet with both of his feet. But he didn't get the yellow. He didn't get a free kick out of it. He did get a booking for his retaliatory tackle, which was a bit harsh from the referee. But Hazard then instead decided to tear West Brom to pieces, and that certainly was nice to see. His little celebration right in front of the West Brom fans was pretty funny too. It's Hazard is often accused of not really caring. He's out there just to have fun, but he got pissed off today, and it was good to see. It's good to see him do his payback on the pitch, do his talking on the pitch, and lead Chelsea to this nice 4-0 win. What is really going on with Kenedy? I'm not sure. I think Kenedy's basically just not really good enough. I like him just from the few performances that he's had, but I don't know. He's just as a left wing back, which we apparently insist on playing him as. He's okay for the League Cup, but I don't know. If he was out there in Champions League or Premier League, I'd be highly concerned. And I know Alonso has his critics, but I like Alonso's style, and I like what he brings to the team. Even though two of his crossfield passes today were absolutely terrible, and he should not do that again. But I think I don't know. I would assume Kenedy. Chelsea really wanted to send Kenedy out on loan this season, especially after his little Instagram shenanigans in China. But we found no takers for him. So, and we also failed to sign any new left wing backs. Not even just Alexandro, because I think that was just a pipe dream all along. But an actual backup to Alonso. We never actually signed one, so Kenedy kind of stayed by default, and so he's getting the bare minimum of minutes and involvement. And I think that's all we should ever really expect out of Kenedy. And maybe that's harsh. And he looked his first season. I still remember the first time we all watched him play was against Barcelona in a preseason friendly. And there was the moment when he put Luis Suarez on the ground and just showed really good strength and physicality on the wing. And said, this kid might actually be going to places. And that first season he had a fair bit of involvement, both as a winger and as a wingback, scoring a couple of good goals. But it was a pretty terrible season for Chelsea. So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what how hopeful we should be of any long term future for Kenedy at Chelsea. He's just kind of making up numbers, and eventually will go the way of many other decently promising young players. I.e., he'll be sold. If not Kenedy, at least Baba Rahman should have been given a chance. Well, I think Baba Rahman will be given a chance when he's done being injured, which he still is. Yeah, it's that ACL injury he suffered in January. I think he's just finally recovering from that. A few weeks ago, he was back in like light training, that sort of stuff, but he's not training with the team at all. And in January, I think we'll be faced with the decision whether to send him out on loan so that he can gain some like rehab time. I'm sure Schalke, they were interested in the summer, but then opted against it. Probably because his injury was taking longer than anticipated. But yeah, I think I know Baba Rahman was one of the first quote unquote casualties of Conte's regime. He was sent out alone pretty quickly, and Conte came out specifically saying that Baba Rahman just he's not doing much defending there on the left, and that's no good for me. But at the time we were still, or at least Conte was still trying to play a back four, and so there as a left back, Baba Rahman was you could see the problem there with him not really being a good defender, at least in Conte's eyes. But now with the left wing back, I mean that's pretty much what you'd assume is the perfect role for Baba. And yeah, I'd like to see him given a chance. And he is only 22, right? 23 maybe. And we spent a decent amount of money on him. He had a really good season there at Augsburg, and he certainly has plenty of promise. I don't think anybody's given up on Baba Rahman just yet. But that injury in January was really, really badly timed. Not that there's ever a good time for injuries, but it was just unfortunate there. Conte Italy rumor, does it have any legs, or is it just one of the many nonsensical speculations by the media? I think it's very much a speculative thing. Most of it is based on Conte has always said, how much he liked his time at Italy. It was kind of funny because before Euro 2016, Conte was saying, he's ready to get back into club management. He's kind of bored because international management is boring. You only play, a handful of games. You play maybe a couple games a month. You only work with the players for a couple weeks at a time. And that's, Conte is a coach. He likes to work with players. He likes to improve the players. And that was just boring for him. So he said he was ready to get back to club management, day-to-day grind, etc., etc. And then they went to Euro 2016 and had this really nice run. And the team came together. And it was really good team spirit. And, this is the sort of thing that happens in sports, right? Like you become band of brothers, all this stuff. So after that, Conte was saying, like, if I hadn't accepted the Chelsea job already, like I probably would have stayed in Italy. So you can always go back to that and saying, oh, Conte wants to be back with Italy, but we also have to remember that he actually just got super bored in Italy, being a national team manager in just 2 years. So I don't think Conte is in any hurry to get back to the Italian team, but I think he also is not very happy where the team has been taken since he left, because their failure to qualify for the World Cup is pretty stunning. It's the first time since 1958, and just that coach making so many bad decisions. Everybody could see how what a terrible decision it was. For example, to not start and not even play Insigne in the last game. It's just ridiculous stuff. So a lot of that, I think Conte actually tweeted about this. And so that's been used as The story I read was because I guess Conte's tweet is urging the Italian Federation to make a good choice this time. Basically, that's what he's saying. Like, don't hire stupid coaches anymore. So now this has been spun into a rumor where Conte is supposedly telling the Italian Federation to wait until Chelsea fire him or he leaves Chelsea in the summer and then appoint him, which I think that's quite a there's quite a lot of mental gymnastics involved in putting that rumor together. So I don't think we have to worry too much about that. There's always calls for Conte to come back. I think Del Piero was saying something about, I wish we had Conte back as the Italian head coach. But I think at this point, given the massive disappointment and failure of this qualification campaign, I think at this point they'll take anybody back. One interesting rumor I heard actually was Ancelotti taking over the Italian national team, which I think could be an interesting and a smart appointment, because Ancelotti is always the type of coach who can take a lot of big stars and big egos and make it work together in sort of a relaxed, informal setting. You know, Conte needs that day-to-day regimen of training, everybody buying into the team ethos and all that. So, you know, Conte doesn't really strike me as an international coach, as somebody who can work with just random players every few weeks. You know, he needs people he needs to live with his players basically. But Ancelotti, I think, could be a good appointment for Italy. Basically, I'm not too worried about Conte going to Italy to manage the national team. I could see him eventually returning to Italy to manage a club team. There are plenty of rumors linking him with AC Milan, but then AC Milan are also just in all sorts of financial dire straits and problems, because their main backer in China is I don't know, running into trouble, I guess. There's all sorts of shenanigans. You can I encourage you to read up on the weird and shady dealings behind investors buying into Milan with unsecured funds and things like that. And after you read that, maybe send old Roman a thank you letter for being the greatest owner ever. Is Charlie Musonda alive? Charlie Musonda is alive, but he is injured, is the word I've seen. From Conte was saying before the game that Musonda has some sort of knee issue, and so that's why he is not involved in training or in the matchday squad today. Musonda is one of the 3 injuries with the team right now, with Moses still coming back from his hamstring and Batshuayi's foot injury. Is it foot injury? That caused him to withdraw from the Belgium squad over the international break. I haven't seen anybody say what it actually is, but he was not involved in training, and he was not involved in the matchday squad today. He was at home tweeting about things, so that's also that's a nice thing about Batshuayi, is even when he's not playing, he's an active part of the squad, doing some solid tweeting there on Twitter to big up his international colleagues and his teammates. I know Charlie's stylist injures him once every 2 to 3 weeks, says Troy. Hey, Manchester United are losing. All right, come on, Newcastle. It's the Mourinho versus Benitez derby. Oh, wow. That's been a long time. 14 minutes is when they scored. I missed it. Dwight Gale. Nicely done. Nicely done, Dwight Gale. USA's own DeAndre Yedlin with the assist. There you go. So yeah, if United by some miracle fail to win today, which would be hilarious, Chelsea will finish the weekend in second, which is not a bad place to be. A routine win for Chelsea, says Delapo. Interesting name. But yes, yeah, let's wrap this up here, I suppose. Been here for a decent while. Get on with the rest of our weekend. Yeah, it's about as routine as a win will get at the Hawthorns. It's not exactly the best, happiest place. Despite last season, Chelsea clinching the title there last season. Overall, it hasn't really been that happy of a hunting ground for Chelsea. I think we lost or failed to win 3 of the previous 4 there before last season's win. So today, the 4-0 certainly as routine as it gets. In fact, Rick Glanville, the official Chelsea historian, was saying that is the biggest margin of victory Chelsea have ever had at the Hawthorns, 4-0. So it's not a bad way to kick off this period of 4 months without an international break. Games every 3-4 days. So it's gonna test the squad's depth and resolve, but not just Chelsea's. We're remain 9 points behind City, but it's gonna test their resolve as well. And we just have to be in position if and when they do end up dropping points. We have to be in a position to take advantage, and we're gonna need all the players. Hopefully everybody can get back from injury. The 3 players who are still injured, Musonda, Batshuayi, and Moses, hopefully can come back and contribute. We're gonna have hopefully, if a Qarabag win, for example, on Wednesday, would guarantee Chelsea advancement to the knockout rounds in the Champions League, so we can use the last game of the Champions League group stages against Atletico to rotate the squad a little bit and give the backups a chance as well. Spread those minutes around so people don't get too tired. So it's gonna be, it's gonna require some lots of commitment and lots of good rotation from Conte as well. Which many will tell you the jury's still out whether he can actually handle this and make solid and good decisions. The 3-5-2 is looking pretty good at the moment. And hopefully that's we found the tweaks that were needed to fix the issues with the 3-4-3 that teams had found out how to press and how to block the usual passing patterns. So hopefully this slight switch to 3-5-2 with Conte back, hopefully this is the way forward. How's the beef going between the boss and David Luiz? I think they've made peace for now, is what I'm going with David Luiz back on the bench. I think Christensen has earned his spot, and he hasn't done anything to lose it so far in the 2 games that he started. And until he does, I'd expect him to continue starting. So it's how it should work, really. If you play well, you should get rewarded, and if you do something stupid, either on the pitch or off the pitch, personally, whatever David Luiz might have done, he's paying the price, and hopefully he responds well and gets better or fixes whatever the issues are. Or if he doesn't, then guess we'll sell him again. I don't know. It's sometimes it's you have to be cold in this business. So anyway, 4-0 today for Chelsea. Hazard with the brace, Morata with the first goal, and Alonso with Chelsea's third. Basically, that was game over when he scored that third before the first half was even out. But really, it was over at 2-0. West Brom, this is now their 11th game in a row without a win. I would be surprised if Tony Pulis survives too much longer at the Baggies. He'll be resurrected. People love Tony Pulis to come in and try to save their season with his classic Pulis ball. But I think his time at West Brom is drawing to a close. And for once, it won't be a Chelsea manager who's sacked after a West Brom versus Chelsea game, which is not bad. we live to see this day as well. So 4-0 in third, possibly second. Next up is Qarabag on Wednesday night away in Azerbaijan. If you're going to that, good luck. I've seen a couple itineraries that it's going to be a pretty busy travel day for people making it out all the way to Azerbaijan. But I'm a little jealous because it sounds like a cool place to go and visit, or a unique place anyway. I don't know how cool it would be, but it would be a unique place. A nice, not your everyday away game at Azerbaijan. So we will have a live stream probably after that game. I'm not sure if immediately after or the following morning. Will depend on scheduling and stuff like that. If you watched any of this, as always, I thank you. Thanks for all the comments. Be sure to visit the website weain'tgotnohistory.com. And yeah, thanks for watching. Keep the blue flag flying high and all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you after the Qarabag game. So